of honor.
I'll remember that. Hey guys, we're talking to the computer geek that is the most computer geeky guy that I've met. Andrew Sispoidis, how are you doing there?
I'm really well. Ken, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I say that kiddingly, but I say that in a way that it's going to add some value to our listeners and viewers in a big way. And why? Because everyone's talking about artificial intelligence. Everyone also is probably talking about the fact that they're afraid of artificial intelligence because potentially it could really harm society. At least some people think it could harm society. And you're here to talk about some of the security factors that are potentially going to be in place. They're going to help us, and maybe, who knows, will help some of our viewers and listeners as far as getting over the barrier of success to AI, and they'll be happy with what's going on going forward.
Well, that's I completely agree with you. By the way, I think that I think AI it's an incredible technology in that it poses some of the greatest risks, but also some of the greatest potential opportunities. And so if anyone who's looking at the world and how it's evolving, AI is going to be at the center of everything. It's going to be woven into everything, down to the level of medical health, as well as kind of neural connections to machines, things like that. So that's all that's all the reality of the near future, and it sounds very sci-fi. But we're not that far off from a lot of those things becoming a reality next 5, 10, 15 years max.
Man, a while back, people used to laugh at me because I thought, oh, AI is going to be the end all be all, in which I think down the road it's going to be until quantum computing goes around. And now people are like, well, the same people who are laughing at me are now putting conferences together as far as AI. They're starting businesses based on AI. Plus, they're seeing how few employees they need now because of AI, which also, by the way, they can charge less because their cost factor is lower as a result. So now people, I think, are starting to catch on, but maybe there's still ways to go.
I completely agree. And I think that, any business person ought to learn AI technology, AI skills. And the interesting thing about it is it's not hard. It's natural language. You're interacting with something. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's not like it used to be. So, and that'll give you levers. That'll give you power, an ability to, like, as you said, much more cost efficiently, much more time efficiently, be able to do what you do and do more. So it's, it represents an incredible technology. There's no question.
That's exactly. So let's talk about the safety part of it, because that's your bailiwick. What are you doing as far as safety? Or let's talk about just kind of the foundation, and then let's step a little bit higher on the rung. So give us a little bit of basics about, safety and AI, et cetera.
So the interesting thing about AI is that it's a technology that's self-learning. I guess one way to look at it is that it's self-learning, and it will continue to evolve and take in information, be able to parse that information, essentially be able to make sense of information over time. And that basically means everything. It means everything from what's published to what you could read in media that's coming out, all the way to your personal interactions. So as an individual and as a business owner, you're interacting on a daily basis with a number of people. If you can imagine AI sitting over the top of that, watching, listening, and everything that you're doing, and that's an inevitable truth. That's something that we're not going to be able to step away from. And with that, what would you want? Would you? I guess the example that I give is, if you had a direct neural connection to AI, to a computer, essentially everything you think and do, and everything you interact with, wouldn't you want that to be private and secure? You wouldn't want that getting out into the world, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build that security layer in a very simple way, so that anyone can use it and be able to use any AI, and it's transparent to the user, so they don't really have to worry about it.
Okay. Wow. That's very good. Ooh, that's a good entree to this conversation. So wait a minute. What are you doing about it? Let's, cause why you? Why you? Why you, first of all, because I know your background's pretty cool, and then let's get into, get a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in technology forever. I say that, over 30 years. So, it's kind of, I've seen that big curve, and, I've been in the room, and I've been, to some degree responsible for some of the, interesting things that we've developed. Starting off in gaming, when I started off was late 80s, early 90s. It was the end of the Cold War, and essentially all these brilliant people out of the defense industry, they went to gaming. So like very serious thinkers, very incredibly talented and skilled and brilliant people, all pouring into one industry. And so I was lucky enough to be in the room with these people, and we were thinking of big things, and the expression of that was gaming, and it seemed like a light, frivolous thing, but in reality there was a lot more going on there. And so grew up, basically that's kind of where I started, where I was raised, and as far as my career is concerned. While it was in gaming, then from there, mid 90s, little actually late 90s, my apologies, came up with an idea that said, look, all these incredible things we did in gaming, and because it constantly pushed the edge of the technology envelope, why don't we take that out? Why don't we apply that technology into more serious applications? So we created basically a collaborative community. What we're doing right now, the idea of video conferencing and all that, we were the first to do that. It was a company called Axiom 8. And we were doing all sorts, we called it collaborative communications, and it stitched together everything from telephones of the time that the old switch networks to digital networks to video, and we could scale up and down. If you're walking, you're on your phone and you're in your car, you can then switch immediately to your computer, and that was impossible before. So we started to take, then that's pretty much gaming technology. And as we started to evolve that company, it was my first venture capital backed company, raising like 11 million Series A for that. And it's basically an idea on a napkin. So we developed the technology. We built it. It was primarily for large enterprises. That's kind of the focus of it. And so, anyways, I then stepped away from that area of technology and went back slightly back into gaming, but it was actually media tech and ad tech. And ad tech. The interesting thing there is ad tech is about knowing information about people. Essentially, it's about
100%. Total. People don't realize that. That's true.
Yeah, that's all that it really is. It's basically the more you know, the more intimate knowledge you have of individuals, the better you can market to them. And so we ended up creating a company called IGA Worldwide. We had 500 million people in the network. It was all directly into gaming environments. So we delivered the media directly to the games. We had an ad tech platform. And so between those three experiences, what I started to see very clearly is that security is going to play a very important role in what we're doing because just individual information is getting out there and it's being accumulated in such a way where patterns can be drawn very quickly. Then social media became a reality. And then that's when I got involved in cybersecurity, again, at a national level, working with defense, working with intelligence agencies, working with, just on a policy level on how do we address some of these real issues. One of the vectors, essentially, one of the critical vectors was, social media. And we started to see the confluence of those things. So, but essentially, when you think about artificial intelligence as we know it today, abstractly, the way we ought to look at it is that social media was AI 1.0, in that effectively those algorithms were about understanding the world around you and basically be able to deliver something that made sense to you. So there was a human element. The idea is, there was a human element.
I get your point.
Yeah, the algorithms drive it.
You're right about that. And it's just a forward-thinking platform in a sense. So that's basically what the AI LLMs are. Yeah, okay, I get it. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and so the idea with there is that we saw how now I have opinions on this, and I think that everyone has a view on it. I think social media it can be a beautiful thing, and I think it does extraordinary things for business to connecting families and people. That's all great. But also there's a catastrophic side to it. It creates addiction. It creates all sorts of problems in the world. And that's so the challenge is let's do it right this time. The web and the internet was phase 1, social media phase 2, and artificial intelligence is phase 3. Let's do it right this third time, and let's make sure we do it in a way that honors the human being, the individual, as well as their privacy, their security, and their digital sovereignty.
I got you. Look at you. Okay, I get it. So then what exactly are you doing? It sounds like you have a move of foot to be able to really answer that question. And it sounds like it's a technology. And what exactly are you doing?
So the technology, we're doing an MVP right now, which is minimum viable product that should be complete soon, not too long, and a few months really. And we're going to be going to partners that are privacy-minded platforms, like Mozilla and Brave browsers, things like companies like that, and hopefully starting to work with those guys to integrate into their platforms. And it should be transparent. It should be a seamless technology that as far as you get your privacy and security without having to worry about it. It's kind of like VPN companies would certainly work with them, but it's kind of like a VPN in some sense, but a much more sophisticated in terms of what it does.
Well, how does that work? Will it change my enjoyment of an application, as an example, or how would that work?
So it's a great question. So how it works is basically this. The MVP. Let's look at it that way. The MVP, how it works is basically we create a connection to a large language model, or by the way, multiple large language models simultaneously.
Oh, I like that, by the way. Yeah.
So that's it. It's interesting because that became an accidental benefit of what we're doing. So we can actually go. You can have an inquiry. You type whatever you want to type in, or you speak whatever interface you want to use, and you're working with one LLM, you can actually work across multiple LLMs. So we'll have
Hold on. I might like that. So if I'm, let's say we use Gemini, you're also
yeah,
saying I can use Claude all at the same time through your interface?
simultaneously. So that's the idea as far as you're concerned is basically I have a question or I want to create something. Well, great. Let them fight it out in some sense. Let them get you the best answer you want to get. So
Okay,
that's
I like that. I like
happy
that
accident.
overlay. I got you. So, but okay, now me being a consumer, I'm afraid that my data. Oh no! Here, I'll just use me as an example. Our company, it's 19. It was born in 1969, so we have mass data, mass clients, right? And what I'm doing in our own AI models, we're dumping all the information into our own AI model, and then when people ask a question, it's a query about all our information, right? Same thing with big LLMs. I'm afraid to have all my questions out there because then it's going to be owned. I don't know if owned, but yeah, I'll just say it could be owned by another party. So that's the security I'm looking for. It sounds like you have something to combat that.
That's exactly it. I think you hit it. That pain point that you're describing is exactly what we're doing. We're basically creating creating a technology that you will, let's say you're interacting with that AI. I'm going to use text as an example. You're just typing into it. Everything that you're typing is encrypted, secured, and private. That doesn't go out. Your identity doesn't go out. Where it's coming from doesn't go out. It gets sent out. Then it basically gets anonymized. When it goes out, the query about multiple AIs, single or multiple AIs, then it comes back. Then then you get your answer that you want, and all the trail just disappears effectively. So
it's the encryption. It's the encryption to get into that flow of information. That's where you're doing. So the encryption is basically at the client site somehow.
That's right. Yes. So that's right. That's right. Across the board. That's actually that's exactly right. And by the way, that processing of your queries happen locally. And so, and this is for the MVP. The next level, next generation of technology it's really advanced. What we're trying to do is, it's a dual type of AI, what we're calling the inner core, the gnosis core, which has all the neural embeddings and the knowledge of all that knowledge that you're basically dumping into your corporate database. And about you as an individual and all the teamwork and everything else that you're doing, you'll be able to create users and super users, in the next generation of it, where permissioning can happen, of course, kind of typical within a corporate environment, so that individual node will have all that knowledge cluster of you as an individual, as a node within the enterprise. But then the team, and then from there the larger group, and all that can basically be anonymous and private, effectively. So we'll be able to secure multiple layers of that.
Okay, well, here's a question. Sorry, I'm asking kind of weird questions, but if all the information is kept in my query, it won't help the LLMs to grow. Because part of the LLMs, people don't know this, the LLMs actually kind of grow from their information that they're obtaining from the people who are asking questions. So it sounds like this would not help the LLM models grow any more than they're getting the information from all their, in this case, nodes. So that seems like that would be a barrier to success, at least for the LLMs to a certain extent, meaning they would want to fight that because it doesn't help their model to grow.
It's a great point, a great question. I love how you're thinking this through, because the reality is that, that is true. And we have really one answer to that, which is that the next phase of what we're building is essentially the attribution model, what we're calling basically this, the information sovereignty, the self-sovereignty side of it, which is it's a blockchain-like technology. And the idea there is, so anything you create ought to be attributable to you.
Right, to me, exactly, yeah.
And to the level where you can maintain privacy, but have a zero knowledge proof, for example, that kind of thing, where you can maintain privacy without giving away your the information you don't want to give away, but also have an attribution to the thing that you created. So it can go out there, it can inform the model, and you can the model can evolve with that information, but it doesn't have to necessarily be. It can be attributed to you. You have sovereignty over that, meaning that if there's a financial component to it, if it's intellectual property that that you have rights to and there's royalties, you should be able to be part of that chain.
Yeah,
So
I get that. I would want that. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So, all right. So here you're a small little company. Although it sounds like you're going to be well backed. Of course, you probably are always wanting more money. But why trust a small company in such a large endeavor, even though you're going to the enterprise level, at least to a certain extent? But why trust a little company in this regard?
Well, great. It's a great question again. So I think, all big companies start off with little companies. And I think that we have a very pure vision. The idea here is to, we don't have a legacy. and we don't have, one of the things as an example, and not to trash Apple, I think they're an amazing company, but I think what they're doing with their AI strategy is they're creating essentially platform capture. You won't be able to leave the Apple ecosystem. And that becomes a bit of a problem. And I think Google's going to do the same, and all the big players are going to they have more at stake. AI isn't their primary thing. This AI security will be our primary thing, and we'll work with everyone. That's the goal. So we want to be a utility more than anything else. We're not going to butt heads with anyone wherever we can, but we want to be a utility for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I get you. Plus, you'll be more nimble because you're a smaller company, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and those others, I think you're right. They want to keep their data because that's where they're going to end up more valuable. But anyway, I have a lot of questions about that. So ask a few more questions then about some of the logistics of your company. How you're putting it together. Meaning, what's the fundraising like? And I know it's weird, but I want to know some of the specifics of the company itself.
I'm happy to talk about that stuff. The idea is that it's a very, very small project right now, meaning that we're actually only raising a small amount to start with. We want to basically, and we ideally like to raise from believers effectively, people who understand and really do care about that. That's important to us. All of our partners, and we'll get the venture partners. We'll do that, at some point in the near future. We're nowhere near that right now. So we're raising, we're looking to raise 1.5, but as we started to develop the MVP, we put some of our own money in. As we started to develop the MVP, we realized we probably need another $400,000, and we can build that MVP. And so it's good news. That's the good news. And so after that, we'll have an MVP. We'll be able to get to customers and hopefully even start generating revenue before we actually have to go for that Series A. And the Series A, of course, will be a much larger round.
Yeah, I get you. So it's not like you're looking for huge dollars. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're looking for investors all over the country, accredited investors, et cetera, I bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Accredited investors, but people who are believers, people who really do care about privacy. It's critically important to us.
I think down the road, it's a big deal. I mean, that's the one scary thing about AI, because people are afraid of what potentially could come down the pike, and I think that privacy is a big component. If someone can come up with a real answer, that'll put some of the people's concerns at bay, I would think.
That's the goal, really, and to do it and that's why we're looking at it and saying, let's raise from believers, people on somewhat of a grassroots level, just individual investors who are privacy conscious, security minded people who believe in that. So we do want a bit of have a grassroots kind of flavor to us, because we believe in that.
Yeah, so it sounds like in your background you do have some credibility in this marketplace, meaning there's going to be some people who are going to say, well, wait a minute, small company, but wait a minute, Andrew's got a great background. So go into a little bit more information about your background as it relates to AI and cybersecurity, if you can.
Sure. So AI and cybersecurity. So basically, I've been always, if nothing else, a fan of AI for many, many years. In reading science fiction all the way through, and as we started to develop gaming, there's the very primitive kinds of AI that we started to work on in gaming. And this is again 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago. Just like just creating algorithms that basically simulated, real world in some sense. So that very, very primitive. Not the same as today's sophistication, certainly not the horsepower. But then as I got involved in cybersecurity, one of the critical parts of making cybersecurity a reality is the algorithm. And we started to look at how does epidemiology and how cybersecurity and epidemiology are similar, and what do you need to basically address those issues? And the idea there is clearly a lot of horsepower and algorithms that are sophisticated enough to be able to detect patterns that can then address an issue before it becomes a real issue. And so, when I talk cybersecurity, I help, again, with the defense, also banking sector. And that's a critical one because they respond incredibly quick. Finance, banking, all those areas where pattern matching is extremely critical. And then now it's evolved, far beyond that. So again, I've been very fortunate to have several venture-backed companies, several exits, but ultimately have been involved in it. There is a through line, but ultimately, fairly broad sectors of technology.
Yeah, that'll help you be able to raise money. All right, so it just hit me when you were going through that. So a lot of people call or text or email and say, "Hey, how would you counter utilize artificial intelligence to help a small business owner, or what should small business owners do with technology? Because there's so much information out there, so much fluff, and by the way, just remind people, we've been doing AI since 2018. Our model is called Einstein. We're basically rolling out kind of a new thing only for a very few number of clients, and it's helped us to lower tax liability. We partnered with Google years ago, anyway, but that's all bragging, by the way. But
Great. It's good. You're doing great work. You ought to brag a little bit. That's all right.
But now, what would you do as a small business owner, especially with a keen eye on safety? What would you do to optimize artificial intelligence? Let's say you're a real estate agent trying to grow your business. How would you use artificial intelligence, also utilizing a safe means to be able to succeed with AI?
So one example that you might do, first of all, I'm sure every real estate agent has a book of clients, and understanding where they're probably the lowest hanging fruit if you're selling real estate. So being able to gather as much information as you can about your existing clients, and not only what they've done before, but what they're going to be, what they're doing today, who they're engaged, who they're connected with, like all, pulling in some of that, that data that's already going to exist in the AI, and not even suggesting you go out there and build something yourself. It already exists. So using all that information, understanding where they are today, did they have a child? Did they have death in the family? Like, and be able to, engage with, those customers. I think that's one just very simple and very powerful way to use AI. And you can automate the whole process to a large degree. Of course, you want the human touch, no question about that. You want human connection, but you automate the underlying process.
So you would use it for client data securing or securitization of client data. All right, let's get even more granular. What would you suggest? Which model, as an example? If although you might say your own model, but what model would you suggest?
If you're taking, so it's a great question, and they're going head to head, and unfortunately, I think that it depends on the day that you ask.
Totally true, huh? Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's a weird answer, but I think, look, any of the major models are good. I think that they all have advantages and disadvantages. I think Gemini is interesting. I think that actually, there's, because there's just so much massive quantities of data behind that, and there will be far more. I think OpenAI is doing some really incredible work. They continue to, and I don't know what the next iteration is going to look like, but I imagine it's going to be incredibly sophisticated. And Claude is great too, honestly. I was a big fan of Pi for the 5 minutes that it was really anything. But I don't think that's actually getting much traction in recent times. So I think Claude, OpenAI, probably Meta to some degree, Gemini, and then see what Apple does as well.
Yeah, I think
it's tricky.
It is tricky. It depends on the day, because like Gemini just came out with something, Google's Gemini, and then Anthropic's Claude, and then Meta. I mean, they're all coming out with something. And one day, one might be cool. Next day, another might be cool. But I would say spend time as an entrepreneur. Spend time figuring out which one works in your situation, and then continue to spend time, because you're going to grow with whichever AI model you end up deciding upon that day. And if you're spending time learning AI, it will help you down the road. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I completely agree. I forgot Mistral. That's another great one.
Yeah,
that's a great one. And the interesting thing is, all these models are they're getting much smaller, and we're going to start to see on-device, on-device AI effectively. So that's going to play a whole other role. I mean, the idea there is then you can actually do so much more with it without giving away necessarily everything. So
that's big. Yeah. And you're going to have agents based on device AI. That's why I think it's going to be a big thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many opportunities. I think, more than anything else, my advice to people who are business people, and no one has a lot of time, but the best time you can spend, instead of watching a TV show or, kind of surfing the net, is play with AI. Yeah. Just toy around with it. And I think you'll see very quickly how it can benefit you.
Yeah, what I say is, and this might be going a step further, so take 5 hours, 1 day a week, and try one model, and then the next day try another model, try another, and get the AI models to teach you. By the way, they're still going to make some mistakes, but that 1 hour a day on each different model, you'll be able to learn. And then I'll also say, secondarily, do a meetup, a once a month meetup, a physical in-person meetup. People, by the way, used to meet, face to face.
Old school.
Yeah, real old school. And then also go to an AI, AI4 conference or some conference, because who knows, maybe you could rub shoulders with someone who's going to be the next whatever big AI person. You could get a lot of good out of it. Plus, who knows, maybe because you're spending all this time learning AI, once a day for an hour, and then doing a meetup, who knows, maybe you'll be asked to do one of those conferences. You just never know. But anyway, I just say get involved in the AI, because you'll be happy, and if you don't, you're going to be forgotten about. You're not going to be able to succeed.
Absolutely. I think, and the interesting thing is getting involved in AI from the applications, anyone can do it. That's the amazing thing. Anyone can do it.
100%.
You can become an expert. You can actually be writing code just by talking to an AI, saying, look, I want to build. Yeah. I mean, I saw a demo with Claude Artifact. Someone took a photo of a website and said, build me a website that does this. It went ahead and built it in seconds. Just built the whole website. So it's pretty extraordinary what you can do. And as a human, it's a much more humane and human tool, effectively.
Mm-hmm. So how do you use those? I mean, because you're worried about safety, you're a cyber safety specialist, if you will. How do you use those without worrying about your safety?
So I think until we get what we're building up and running, you just accept the reality that what you're doing is just to a large degree there's a public element to it.
Yeah, it's out there, huh?
Yeah, it's out there, and so that's okay. I think that's look. I don't think that there's malice. Any of these companies are kind of nefarious in any real way, but I think there are dangers. I think that you got to be proactive and protective as much as we can.
That's why we're using our own. I mean, I believe in using my own. It's good. We're going to be slower. Yeah. It's going to be tough doing our own stuff, but we put our own stuff in there, and what comes out of it will be based on our own stuff. And as long as we're not putting client information out there, I think we're good to go. Because when putting it out on Google, we don't really own it. Google says they can use it, which scares me. I'm sure it's the same thing with all of them. Bing, Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. So, but like you're saying, I mean, the stuff is out there, and there's only so much you can do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there'll be, Mistral is a really interesting example, because I think that you can build on Mistral, and I think you're pretty much free to do that. I mean, you're not going to have real restrictions.
Yeah, you're right. Because it's on in fact, it's kind of like your own device. Which, hold on, that brings up a point. So if people are doing that, if companies are doing that, let's say AI does that, let's say Apple does that, they do it all on device. Isn't that going to be a tougher deal for you? Because if all these AI models theoretically are now going to be on a device, isn't it kind of basically defeating some of the purpose of what you're doing?
Initially, first blush, I would say, yeah, that certainly looks like it would be. But reality is the two things. One, Apple is going to have their own ecosystem, and you have to exist within the Apple ecosystem to utilize it. And the more, and I think that that's a, I'm not sure that it's an antitrust issue. Very well might be an antitrust issue, but either way, yes, some of what Apple will be doing will touch on what we're doing. But the goal for our goal is to make all AI broadly available without putting those walls up. So we're actually going to be able to. There's no reason why you couldn't use multiple AI simultaneously, get the information and create the things you want to create without having to sacrifice or just kind of be dependent on one platform. So that, so part of it is, the breadth that we want to accomplish. And the other side, of course, is as we advance in, with the technology, some of the things that we'll be doing are really advanced. And by the way, one of the areas that, my experience brought me to this place where I realized, especially with the energy tech company, capturing IP is really important. We have over 31 patents that we're working on right now in this space. So, protecting intellectual property is going to be important. So I think we're going to have a competitive, some competitive advantages.
Yeah, that intellectual property would be even more down the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which reminds me, this is a weird question. I don't know if it's on topic, but what about the fact that pretty soon we're going to be watching avatars, and we're not going to know if we're watching avatars because AGI said it. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that that's absolutely true. And I think that the challenges there are that, it starts to, I can get philosophical with that very easily, what does it mean to a human and who you're interacting with? And what does it mean? What does all that, mean for an individual? Because you're really going to, we're going to be interacting with, you're right, AIs and avatars and essentially, non-sentient beings, effectively.
There you go. That's exactly right. I figured you're the person to ask because that's a security issue, because people could lie and cheat and steal as to who their avatar is and what's going on. Anyway, go ahead.
That's exactly right. And that's also going to extend it. So, to go a little further there, the idea is that, yes, we will be, and, the idea is spreading information. that is truthful or untruthful, that's going to be incredibly difficult to parse. Deep fakes and all that. That's going to be almost impossible to detect from a human being. So what I tell people, the idea is, I think the future, the skill that we have to develop in the future is discernment as human beings. The ability to discern from, use your, be a critical thinker and discern those. I think we should be teaching kids that kind of stuff today, because that's going to be the skill of the future, because everything else will be, AI can do for us. If you want to do math, great. It may make us dumber, but it also may make us smarter. As we develop, neural implants and things like that. That's not that far in the future, by the way. The idea is that we're going to, we're going to be integrated to some degree with that.
Well, we basically are, because our phone is only less than 4 feet away from our head. And that one guy, just got with Neuralink, he now can think how to move his cursor.
Exactly.
It's just crazy.
Exactly. Yep. And as an example, I saw a patent that Apple released that was in the earphones that they have, and it was direct sensing of neural impulses in the actual earphone.
No way! I didn't know that.
So that's look it up. You could find it. It's in the next, I don't know what generation they're going to release it, but it was a patent that they applied for.
Holy mackerel. So what you're saying is, hold on. So just like I was talking about that guy with Neuralink, he was thinking so the cursor would move. He doesn't have to move his hands anymore. So, well, he can't move his hands. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So,
right.
So what you're telling me is Apple came out with basically a patent. So you don't have to move anything anymore. You just have to think it as an earpiece, and it would do whatever you're thinking.
Theoretically, yeah, that's right. And it'll actually, all the inquiries, all the conversations, all the, if you're searching for something, there's no reason why I wouldn't already, instantaneously do that. So it's a brave new world. These things are good. And I think that this is broad adoption for that kind of technology, certainly within 10 to 15 years. Absolutely. Before that, probably.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, totally. If we're patent away, although they file several fake patents, but yeah, wow, that's interesting. That blows me away. Yeah, what type of impact on your business would something like that have? I know that's a weird question, but
no, that's fantastic. No, that's exactly right. That's the kind of thing that we expect. We're seeing down the road. Quantum computing being another example. We're seeing those kind of technologies down the road, and we want to build what we're building with that in mind. Look, the individual, the human being, is a separate entity from AI and from the larger system. So we want to basically secure and make private that separate entity so it can maintain its integrity. And then from there, let the human interact with the rest of the world in a way that's safe.
Yeah, I was just talking to a financial planner last week, and I said basically he has no clue about AI. He doesn't. He barely uses a computer, and he was like, "What's the use for a human going forward? AI will do everything." It was like, it's kind of a good question.
True. That's true. That's true. And that's exactly why what you said is so important. As a human being, start learning those skills. Yeah. They're not skills. It's just learning, just playing, really.
Yeah. And AI will teach you through it. It really will walk you through the whole process too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Well, how about in closing? How about some final things we haven't talked about that you think can add value to the listener, viewer? Again, the people out there are, small business owners, 0 to whatever, 5, 10 employees, high net worth individual, and real estate investor that also, some of them own their own businesses. What would you kind of think that they should hear before we sign off?
So it touches on one of the last point that we just talked about. The idea is, I think that look at hiring, like you hired an IT person 20, 30 years ago. It's kind of that started happening. Look at bringing someone on board who has those skills, or can teach those skills, or can encourage people within the company to as more of the chief AI officer, that kind of thing. Within a small company, someone who's just a tech person who understands that, or tech geek who understands it. That's one thing I'd say. Other than that, I'd say that artificial intelligence will help all of your employees become extremely efficient. And so that's another area where no matter what kind of work you do, you'll be able to build, by the agents that you can build, you'll be able to do things that you can't even imagine. It doesn't mean reduce your workforce. It just means, grow your company.
No, yeah. And people would say to me, I remember back in the day when we were starting this 2018, people were like, well, are you going to be able to get rid of all your employees? And to a certain extent, that's true. But the way I look at it is our costs are going to be so much more reduced. So we can give some of our services and products to some people who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford us. So I applaud AI for that. There's no doubt I'm not going to be hiring as much because of the AI now we're employing. But then again, if I could give one of our services to someone who never would have been able to afford it before, everyone ends up winning in the end. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. It creates scale for things that were previously
Right.
unscalable.
Yep. 100%. So wait a minute. If someone's interested in learning about your technology, investing in your company, maybe getting some coaching, I don't know, from you, et cetera, how does someone get a hold of you?
So best way is you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. Kinismos.ai there. And, the website is kinismos.ai, which is KYNISMOS.ai.
Mm-hmm.
And also on Twitter X, it's Kinismos AI, effectively.
Okay, look, can we spell all that stuff again? Because I'm a slow speller.
Absolutely. And so the company name and the URL is KYNISMOS.ai, and that's Kinismos.ai. And then we also have an X account, and that's Kinismos AI. It's at Kinismos AI. And we haven't set up any other social media at this point. And I can also be found on LinkedIn. Just Andrew Sispoidis.
How do they find you on LinkedIn?
So, yeah, just look for me, Andrew Sispoidis, or Kinismos AI, the KYNISMOS AI.
Sweet. Guys, this has been good. Hopefully, I think the people out there who are both watching and listening know how important AI is, and because they're, they hang out with us. So, and if anyone has any questions, et cetera, you're an AI, obviously advocate, the safety component, which is a big deal. And obviously you can find, information on our website at vastsolutionsgroup.com. Again, vastsolutionsgroup.com. And once again, this is Kenner. We're talking the Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Thanks everyone for spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you for the privilege.